right. Welcome in to Libservative, the show that functions to make thinking sexy again. We are your favorite intellectual idiots. He's Corey Walsh.
And he is Dan Griffin.
And
we got
this
a pretty
is,
exciting show for you tonight.
Absolutely. This is Libservative. You can find us on Twitter and all social platforms at LibservativePod. And that was an abrupt ending. Sorry, we're doing this on our own. We can't be perfect every time. Can't be a perfect production every single time. Corey Walsh, we do have a lot to discuss, as we seem to have every week on a fun Friday. The first thing that we have to touch on just real quick, and it's interesting because I actually kind of like this guy, but we had a discussion during our show prep meeting on Tuesday about one Jordan Peterson. Now, I understand that there are some people listening that might look at my face and see that I'm a white man, and me acknowledging that I like Jordan Peterson, that might bring up a little bit of a stereotype because, you know, he only talks to white males, apparently. However, doesn't matter. Corey and I had this conversation. We decided that Jordan Peterson is a huge bitch, but a necessary bitch, I think, was our actual. I think that was there was a direct quote from both of us as we were getting drunk on a Tuesday evening before we had to get up and work the next day. We love Jordan Peterson. He just cries a lot. Why does he cry so much? It's okay. I get it. Like, I cry sometimes too, but like,
I cry a lot.
Not in public like that all the time, right?
No, people would probably really think there was something wrong. Like, what's wrong with your chemical imbalance, bud? Nothing.
Tim Dillon went a little bit hard.
No, my answer would be, it's not immediately clear to me.
It's not immediately clear to me. It's so I got to give credit to Tim Dillon from his show. I think it was last week, right after Peterson was on Rogan's show, when he did the best,
showed up with the bow tie.
He did the best terrible impression of Jordan Peterson that I've ever heard. Like it didn't actually sound anything like Jordan Peterson, but his cadence and the things that he said were absolutely perfect. We got a little feedback on there.
No, that was me. I was about to share the feed.
We love Jordan Peterson, but we had to say that maybe this is a bit of a misogynistic thing to say, but he's a bitch, but a necessary bitch. He cries a lot.
Yeah,
it's okay to cry if you're a man, but in public over as many things as he does, it's a little odd. It's a little strange.
Yeah. So me personally, at the sake of sounding like a bitch, as you put it, Dan, I do cry a lot.
Language,
but like, goddamn, like Jordan, you're just giving the other side fodder.
You don't have to cry over giraffes or whatever it is that he talked about. That.
Well, I guess it depends. Are giraffes like dying? Like, I might cry if I see someone fucking up a Someone just said crop dust Jordan Peterson in the fucking comments.
It's not immediately clear to me what the smell of that fart actually is.
It is not immediately clear to me where this scent is coming from.
That fart smelled so bad that you don't know what the smell actually is.
That's funny. Dan, I'm half in the bag already, man. So for all the new listeners, anyone who hasn't listened to the last couple of shows, I've been in a dry January, self-imposed. And as soon as February 1st hit, Dan saw me in the show prep a couple of days ago. I showed up with my drink and I was like, it's time to get back onto the chemical dependency train.
As we talked about Jordan Peterson, I, of course, am drinking my traditional dirty martini. 2 olives this evening, though, Corey.
Got some Basil Hayden's bourbon right here. And I'm also drinking some Pigeon Hill salted caramel porters. I'd recommend that. Those are just such a good porter. If you're a porter fan, drink that Pigeon Hill. I'm telling you, you won't regret it.
Which I am not. Where are we starting this evening, Corey Walsh? I would like to start because I have been doing a deep dive into this. Obviously, a major talking point in new media, traditional, illiberal, ill-conservative, horrible mainstream media. Boy, Joe Rogan's name's come up an awful lot, hasn't it, Corey?
It sure has, Dan.
And you listen
It
to Joe,
sure has.
you listen to Joe, and he always goes, "I don't get it. Like, I just like to talk to people." Like he's an admitted total idiot, bro. And that's what we all love about him, isn't it?
Yeah, what is it called? An auto tribe? Is that the word? With someone who's a self-learner?
Something like that. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But he's a very curious. He's a curious guy. You and I listen to Joe quite often.
He's a curious guy. He's a learning guy.
But what we definitely know is that, and we talked about this a little bit last week, and so I'll recap a little bit here. What we definitely know is that Joe and his guests, they just get on and they just bullshit. That's all they do. They just talk for 2, 3, 4 hours about, whatever the topic at hand is, whether the guest wrote a book, this, that, whatever, doesn't matter. But what we know is that Joe and his guests, at least that I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of his shows, I've listened to a lot of his shows, they never openly lie to their listeners, right? Like, they've been wrong.
It's not a conscious lie.
Yeah, they've gotten things wrong. They're riffing, and Joe will openly on his show, if he doesn't think something is right, or even if his guest doesn't think something is right about what Joe said, they will immediately turn to young Jamie, and young Jamie will proceed to pull up the Google machine and, figure out what was wrong about what was said.
What's that website? Pull that shit up, jamie.com.
Yeah, something like that. So, so you never get open lies out of Joe Rogan's show, but you do out of places like CNN and MSNBC.
Ukraine, Iraq.
Ukraine's the newest one.
Flint water crisis.
Basically any war or military incursion that the United States has ever had. There have been open lies. And it's not just CNN and MSNBC. I mean, Fox News has also lied. It's all about, perpetuating this military machine that we have. But what I have seen out of the limousine liberal left, for any new listeners, I feel like I have to say this every time. I do consider myself a leftist, but I don't consider myself the leftist that, that these people tell me to be.
You don't prescribe to all that knee-jerk, emotionally charged identity politics.
So the illiberal limousine liberal left likes to always come up with these ad hom arguments or these excuses for why what they're doing is okay. And in this situation, it is the quote-unquote censorship of Joe Rogan. Let's pull Joe down from Spotify, or demand that Spotify be done with Joe. And the newest argument that I've seen this week is that, okay, the left wants to pull down Joe Rogan from Spotify, but conservatives, what are conservatives doing, Corey? Conservatives want to ban books. And I looked at that and I said, okay, let's just see how true this is. And what I can tell you is this. Done a little bit of a deep dive into this. And I can tell you that no legitimate thinker on the conservative side of things that I have respect for, at least I should say, has said anything about banning any book. In fact, no conservative quote-unquote thinker that I don't respect, i.e. the Glenn Becks, the Tucker Carlsons of the world, nobody's advocating for the banning of books. Now, where is this coming from? This is coming from a Tennessee school district. That's the word I was looking for. A Tennessee school district that has decided to unanimously, 10-0, ban a book called Mouse. M-A-U-S. This is a graphic novel by Art Spiegelman that portrays Jews as mice and Nazis as cats, and it is a story about the atrocities of the Holocaust.
Yeah, a simile to represent the atrocities that happened in World War II.
So, what is this school district saying about this book? They're saying that there's nudity in it, and there is some really strange nudity in it. It's like this
But they're
humanoid
mice.
mouse. Yeah, it's like this humanoid mouse with a bare tit. And I've always been an advocate of, for the longest time, like tits are not the enemy, like tits are your friend. So I don't really understand that one.
Yeah, honestly, Dan, as a man, I can actually say, I agree with that.
As a man, as a baby, it doesn't matter. Like they're boobs. They're just boobs. That's all they are.
As a cis straight male, tits are cool.
I don't think it should matter. Like if you're a woman,
jot that down.
If you're a woman, if you're trans, if you're a child, it doesn't matter. Like tits have always been your friend. That's just part of reality. Some of the other objections to this book have been things like violence. Apparently, they show kids dying. I have not read this novel. There's apparently some profanity in this.
Oh no,
can't have profanity.
Oh man.
So, Vice, or I'm sorry, was it Vice? Hang on, what did I say it was? It wasn't Vice. It was Slate. Slate did an interview with a woman named Emily Knox, who is an associate professor at the University of Illinois and the author of a book that was written in 2015 called Book Banning the 21st Century in America. Now, I read this entire interview, and I have to tell you that Emily Knox is somebody that I agree with, but also disagree with. Emily goes on to say in this interview, we are seeing a rise in book challenges. And that kind of makes sense to me, right, Corey, in the internet age? Like, doesn't it just kind of make sense that, like, it just goes more viral that, hey, this book is bad, so we should ban it?
Yeah, no, it happens all the time. There was actually a book called American Dirt, and people were calling for it to be, like, pulled off the shelves and stuff because it was a white woman that wrote a book about a Mexican, no. Yeah, was it Mexican? Yeah, Mexican family. I couldn't remember if they're what Latin country they're from at first, but yeah, a Mexican family that was trying to evade the cartel and escape to North America. And because she was white, everyone just disregarded her fictional book.
Yes.
And said it was cultural appropriation.
And that actually brings me to the next point, because Emily Knox also goes on to say in this interview that while there's a rise in book challenges in various jurisdictions and school districts, that it's not all coming from the right. And what's interesting about that is the fact that if you go and you actually read this interview from Slate, which we will put in the show notes below, she actually is remarkably to the left culturally, which you can read towards the end of the interview. But she goes on to mention a quote unquote TERF book, a trans exclusionary radical feminist book. What the book I think she's referring to, I don't know, but the book I think she's referring to is Abigail Schreier's book, Irreversible Damage, which was banned on Amazon for a short time. It's since been put back on Amazon. You can get it there. But there's a petition right now that I pulled up on change.org to ban Abigail Schreier's book because it's supposedly anti-trans and super hateful. If you don't know anything about this book, essentially what this book is about, mothers, parents being worried about young girls and this short onset gender dysphoria that is happening among young girls. It's gone up something like 3,000. I don't know the number, but it's gone up a major percentage just in the last few years. And Abigail Schreier only wrote this book because she was a journalist that people felt that like they could, parents particularly of young girls, felt like they could reach out to with concerns. And it's to me, Corey, it's legitimate. It's, you can understand if you had a young daughter that was, 9 years old and said, people at school are saying that they They feel like, her friends at school, her lady friends at school feel like they're boys, and maybe she feels the same way too. I mean, it's not necessarily an anti-trans thing, but if you're a parent and you have a daughter that's 9 years old that says something like that, you're gonna be taken aback by it, don't you think? I mean, you have a young
Yeah, and we're in an environment to where it's like if you push back on that, you're cubbyholed into a corner to where you are anti-trans.
the interesting thing about that is I actually have a direct cousin. I won't give his name, but he was born a girl. And recently transitioned at the age of 19. And I can tell you that I watched this young man grow up, and I could see it. I could see it. At first, he referred to himself as a lesbian. That was the first step, which is normal, right? That's normal. And then, when he finally had the chance to grow up a little bit and really make a decision, he decided to transition, and we all support him in that. However, had he decided to make that decision at the age of 9, and his parents had been like, well, we're going to, block, his puberty. We're going to, make sure that he doesn't, make sure we put him on hormones at an incredibly young age. I don't know that myself and the rest of my family would have necessarily supported that, but he had his journey. In fact, at some point, I would actually like to have this young man on our show to talk about this. We kind of got into the weeds there a little bit, but this is a book that's being supposedly banned by the left.
Yeah, and it's funny you actually mentioned that because the book I was just talking about was the same thing.
Banned by the left.
Yeah, it was people on the left that were calling it cultural appropriation and trying to say that this book shouldn't be promoted as much as it was because of the fact that it was written by a white woman about Mexican families. And it's funny because right now, have you seen this stuff with Peter Dinklage at all?
Yes, about
when you want to talk about cultural appropriation.
I don't even know what the term is anymore. Is it still little people? Is it?
I think so, but 7 actors who are little people potentially losing their jobs now because of Peter Dinklage. I saw this thing. It was Babylon Bee, and it said Disney is changing the title of the movie from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs to Snow White and the Seven Little People are pissed off because now they're on the unemployment line.
and that's just it, right? So,
and the reason they've been bringing that up and joking about it is because those actors who were hired for those positions are pissed. They're pissed at Peter Dinklage.
Well, I think
here he is, a very successful actor.
Yeah, it's the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, and it's viewed as, whatever it is, anti-dwarfism or anti-little bit. I apologize if I'm using the wrong verbiage here. It's hard to keep up in 2022.
Verbiage landmines everywhere you walk, Dan.
Yeah.
Careful.
So, Peter Dinklage thinks he speaks for all people with dwarfism. Everybody. Is that what we're to understand?
I guess so, yeah.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarves was a cartoon. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, it obviously wasn't meant to make fun of people.
Obviously, he's just pissed because he didn't get the role for the angry dwarf.
Grumpy.
God damn it.
Peter Dinklage didn't get grumpy, so he's upset.
Cancel.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that comment might have gotten us in trouble a little bit.
Anyway,
cut my life into pieces. This is my last resort.
Perfect segue.
No, anyway, moving on. So yeah, Emily Knox's whole point was that, like, it's not all the left, or I'm sorry, it's not all the right that's banning these books. And where the comparison of book banning to petitioning Spotify to censor Joe Rogan falls apart. Okay.
Yeah, and you're right. And it's it's interesting how like right now, especially like pages like Occupy Democrats, this whole left movement of not I don't want to say left, this whole liberal, the luxury liberals that we talk about,
Limousine liberals. These people
the
aren't
limousine
actual
liberals
leftists.
that are segmenting the different things, and they're trying to ban free speech from people who have podcasts like we do, but then also condemn print that's trying to be banned. And it's like they're both kind of the same thing. It's people expressing their opinion just because one is in like verbiage and one is actually on paper. It really doesn't make a difference. If that makes sense what I'm saying.
No, it does. But where it falls apart is right here. So where the comparison of book banning to petitioning Spotify to censor Joe Rogan falls apart. First of all, it's like these two wrongs make a right argument, because I don't agree with either of these things. Like I don't agree with this Tennessee school district banning mouse, and I don't agree with that at all. But here's the difference, right? So mouse and other book bannings traditionally are localized. We're literally pointing to one school district in Tennessee here that's banning this book. Now I can already hear somebody that defends deplatforming Joe Rogan on the other side going, well, we're just asking Spotify to do it. We're just asking Spotify to do it. We're not asking everybody to do it.
We're not asking for censorship, but if Spotify doesn't do exactly what we want, we're just going to try to cancel them and try to do all this sort of stuff.
And the other thing
free enterprise.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a second. But the quote-unquote book banning is dealing with children in a school setting, right? It isn't this isn't something that's new. All these kids still have access to this book. You can, like, if parents say, I don't support this book banning, they can easily in various places buy this book for their child if they really want them to read that book. All these kids still have access to the book, just not in school, right? So the same goes for pornography, which is also banned in school, right? Like you can't teach porn in school either.
You have to use a proxy server to find it on the computers in high school. I don't know if you know that. I don't think we have any listeners under 18, but I remember in high school.
I don't know if you can still do that.
Use a proxy server to watch porn at school.
But when it comes to the quote unquote banning of books and the banning of mouse in particular, which is the book that started this particular argument for why it's okay to silence Joe Rogan, you don't have state corporatized propaganda news outlets spreading lies about a book like Mouse in an effort to get unthinking flocks of idiots to rail against free speech nationwide. That's not happening.
Yeah, you're right. It is. It's way more local. It's like in that little sect right there in Tennessee. It's not a nationwide thing, like the whole nationwide movement towards Joe Rogan, which actually they brought this up on Breaking Points recently. Now, correlation is not causation. And I'm going to have everyone bear with me, throw on your tinfoil hat real quick, because this is a fun look. We need to have tinfoil hats made so we can just like visually put them on when we say things like this, because it's kind of funny, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with it, but the fact that Hypnotic, the mic. You ready for this real quick? Hypnotic, who owns Neil Young's catalog, just recently merged with Blackstone, which is one of the biggest real estate investment companies in America. They like I said, they just merged with what happened to you, Dan? You look frozen. Anyways, can you hear me? Okay, I can't hear you. So Hypnotic and Blackstone, they just merged recently, and Blackstone just got a new CEO who was one of the higher ups in Pfizer. Now, if Joe Rogan's on Spotify with a narrative that is skeptical of the vaccine, and then the CEO of Pfizer is now a part of Blackstone, who owns Hypnotic, who owns the music to Neil Young, and now Neil Young is the one saying, "Oh, we need to get rid of Joe Rogan." It's comical to me that you just can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
I don't hear anything you're saying. I'm gonna refresh real fast.
Gordon, refresh. Don't worry, we have an extremely low budget here on the show. Just 1 second. But it goes back to, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
There we go.
I'm hardwired in. I don't know if it was my side this time.
You know what's serious? I am telling you my connection is unstable.
Damn,
No.
you're breaking up again. Maybe you should refresh real quick.
I don't know how to do that.
I can't hear it. Uh-oh. So anyways, yeah. So what I was saying basically is Neil Young, it just seems like if you want to let's keep the tinfoil hats on while we wait for Dan to get back, it seems there might possibly maybe be some sort of monetary influence that's making him decide to choose where he's going with this kind of thing. But also, one other caveat is the fact that Neil Young is also an audiophile, which means that he is super big on like the way audio sounds. Now, when it comes to a musician like that, they have an ear and a knack for that type of for a sound for music. And Spotify doesn't necessarily have the greatest sound that is out there. And when you have someone like Neil Young, who's one of those type of people who's putting tape on the wall and adjusting speakers and moving them at certain angles just to get that perfect sound in his room, he might be a little pissed off about Spotify not having his music. And I kind of understand that because I'm one of those nerds that really, really believes in the idea that vinyl records sound way, way better than like any sort of compressed music on MP3. Even a waveform doesn't even compare to a vinyl record. But ultimately, whether it's either a monetary gain or a quality thing, I think at the end of the day, Neil Young personally, it's more about his relevancy. Because we're talking about a guy who once wrote a song called Keep on Rockin' in the Free World. And he went from Keep on Rockin' in the Free World to now trying to ban
I'm back.
people. He's back. I was talking about how Neil Young is actually also it's either I said that it's either the conspiracy theory where he's trying to gain a monetary value because of his catalog with Blackstone, or it's also has a little bit something to do with because he's always had a bit of a disdain for Spotify because of the quality of music, and he's an audiophile. And I kind of relate to that. And I was talking about how I kind of relate to that because when you listen to a vinyl versus a wave or an MP3, a vinyl just shits all over both of them.
Is that true?
Yeah. I'll have you over, man. I swear to God, I will play you the same music of a song off of the phone or, through Bluetooth or anything like that. And then you put it on a vinyl and it just, you can hear it's weird. It sounds warmer. The highs and lows and the vary of the music is just way different.
All right, Neil Young.
But yeah, and then I was also saying how I think it might just be something to do with relevancy because he's just an old man who just wants to be relevant. And him and Joni Mitchell.
Yeah, look, bottom line is neither one of these things are okay.
All right, now let's take the tinfoil hats off.
Okay.
Back to book burning.
I'm here.
And back to censorship.
I'm right here.
It's It's not right. And so now that we're actually talking about these two technical difficulties, and we're back at it again.
He's got a
Sharima,
great memory, this guy.
yeah, I do. I didn't. I never left.
It's the first time it's been my fault, not yours. I don't know what the hell happened.
Yeah, I
there.
know. I'm hardwired.
Me too.
Thanks, Biden.
Yeah. Thanks, Uncle Joe.
But yeah, I always found it curious of how quick one side or the other wants to ban something that makes them uncomfortable, but then explain away their side doing it when the other side calls them out and puts them to task and asking them why that they're doing that.
See, when it comes to Joe Rogan, though, it's so easy. It's money. Like they just like the mainstream media just doesn't understand the corporate media. I'm not going to even call them mainstream anymore because Joe Rogan's mainstream.
Yeah, Joe Rogan, Jimmy Dore, Breaking Points, even Tim Pool, Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball, their show. All of these shows get more views than like corporate media.
It just has to do with them not understanding. Like, and there have been, I wish I could pull up the tweets that I've seen, but there have been a few tweets from people that would be in that corporate media that have said, maybe we should start questioning why Joe Rogan is so popular.
Oh no, that was Kat Rosenthal.
Was it
Kat Rosenfield? Okay. Kat Rosenfield. Yeah, she's a New York Times bestseller, and she's a novelist, and she was a culture writer, and she's the one that said that. And it's funny you say that actually because she actually put out a tweet on put out a tweet on Twitter with a poll, and it said, "Okay, let's do this. A poll for Joe Rogan listeners only. Did you get the COVID vaccine? And if anyone has better data sources than this, please give it in replies." 43% is vaxxed, 9% is unvaxxed, and 48% said not a Joe Rogan guy. And so basically, like it looks like it has absolutely whatever is being said on Joe Rogan show has absolutely zero impact on someone who has already made the decision on either be pro-vax or anti-vax. And we were talking about this in a couple episodes ago when we were talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the only reason we even listened to her on the Tim Pool podcast is because of the way everyone's treating her and her being censored. Me and you went into it listening to it, thinking she was an idiot. And guess what?
She's
we
an idiot.
Came out thinking she was an idiot.
Yeah.
She didn't change my fucking mind. She just solidified my opinion. 100%. And it's like nobody is on their way to work or on their way to go get the vaccine, listening to Joe Rogan, and then hearing like Dr. Robert Malone or McCall,
and then taking that traditional Michigan left.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden pulling over, like shaking and hyperventilating, wiping the sweat off their brow, going, "Holy shit! I can't believe I almost did that. Thank you, Joe Rogan," and then tweeting at him. And then, so back to Kate Rosenfield. She said, a follow-up, again, Rogan listeners only. Was your decision to get vaccinated or not influenced by Joe Rogan? 5% said vaxxed. Yes. And they're vaccinated. And 5% that their influence was from Joe Rogan. 73% said they're vaxxed and no.
Dude, and that's the thing. That's the thing about Joe Rogan that makes it, because people want to like
he's the next Trump. It's just he's the target of the corporate media for like a straw man, something to attack to keep themselves relevant.
Yeah, and people want to put him in the same, I just used the term people for lack of a better term, but people put him in like this same category as like an Alex Jones. You know what I mean? It's like, listen to an episode of Alex Jones's show and listen to an episode. You don't even have to listen to 5 minutes of each of these shows to understand how unbelievably different they are. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting because Joe Rogan has had Alex Jones on his show.
And the whole time he's just telling him to calm down.
For 4 hours. It's just 4 hours of Joe Rogan telling
him to calm down and fact-checking him and getting wasted with him on whiskey. And that's hilarious. I don't think even Alex Jones should be censored. If someone is like so out there that they things that Alex Jones says is legitimate, then I'm sorry, silencing him isn't going to make any lick of difference.
No, Corey, and that's the major difference between the quote unquote book banning and the attempted censorship of Joe Rogan, which is that Joe Rogan is literally just having conversations.
That's all it is. It's opinions. And you know what you do? You challenge those opinions with other opinions on an objective basis based in fact. Joe Rogan has literally corrected himself and been proven wrong on his show so many times, and he goes, "Oh shit, you're right." You think CNN is going to do that? You think
Never.
Fox News is going to do that?
Never.
Those people spout fucking misinformation and lies all the time. Look at this Ukraine shit. CNN and Fox News and MS. Oh, actually, well, not Tucker Carlson. He's the only one that's actually getting it right out of all of them. Surprisingly.
Before we get into that, though, Corey, is Whoopi Goldberg okay?
I don't know. She's silenced right now. Should I get into my monologue? I actually wrote a monologue about that.
Go ahead. Let's hear the monologue first.
Okay. Here we go. So wish me luck because I wrote this out and I haven't read it out loud yet. So I don't know what my cadence is going to sound like in this one. The moral significance of a belief derives from the purpose to which it was put. That's a quote from a Thomas Sowell book, and honestly, I'm not sure if it was a quote he found and put in the book, Black Rednecks and White Liberals, or his own words, but it has a powerful, insightful thought provocation regardless. In layman's terms, it's basically stating that the opinion or belief someone holds should be measured based on the intention of what they are trying to convey. Was what is being implied an honest opinion with the purpose of what one would consider a virtuous endeavor in good faith, or from a place of ill will, distrust, or downright hatred? Was it out of lack of context, knowledge of the subject, or being subjective to an opinionated bubble? Or was it willful ignorance, outright anger, shrouded in preconceived biases that cloud the judgment of separating fact from emotion? When someone expresses an opinion on a very emotionally charged subject, should we take the time to take these thoughts into considerations before we have a knee-jerk reaction? The not-so-obvious answer is yes, but in a reactionary society of fast-paced information, the standard operating procedure is to be one of the first to have a response to missteps and shortcomings. A society where we worry more about our responses to what someone said before we digest what they're actually trying to say. Whoopi Goldberg was recently suspended for 2 weeks from her position as one of the hosts on The View. She came from a position that the atrocities the Nazis inflicted on the Jewish community was aberrant, but disregarded it was about race and instead stated it was about humans treating humans inhumanely. She's not wrong. Now, before I get canceled from The View for 2 weeks myself, I'll add the caveat that she's missing key factors like quotes from Hitler himself stating the Jews were an inferior race. But she's on point when it comes to people treating each other as subhuman based on what we should consider trivial in our never-ending strive as the human race to progress. But is her personally having a lack of knowledge on the subject worth silencing her when this could have been an opportunity to be a learning experience? What a better platform than The View to educate not only Whoopi, but all of The View's viewers on the subject of the Holocaust and all of the disgusting events it entails. If someone entrenched in hot-button topics such as race has shortcomings like this, what of the average American? The ones with the voice too small to be canceled and the ones that have no concept of what happened almost 80 years ago. Why not bring on experts to the show to enlighten the cast and audience to bring perspective? Whoopi is not alone in this battlefield of censorship. The last 2 weeks, there has been a concerted attack on another host of a more popular show. Joe Rogan is under attack for having guests on his show that have opinions that cut across the grain of the mainstream narrative. Are they wrong? Misguided? Quite possibly. But in a free society, that is up to the individual to decide these options, not a gatekeeper. Every shortcoming in ill-conceived ideology is a learning opportunity if approached properly with a counterpoint contrived in integrity and objectiveness based in fact. We are all human, and we all have shortcomings, regardless of ideologies, and we are all learning to navigate this rock we live on as we hurl through space, trying to find our place in the world. Some want to be heard and feel their opinions are important to be a part of the conversation, even if they are wrong. In fact, wrong opinions are just as important, so we have the basis to distinguish the good from the bad. Instead of the easy path of shutting people up, let's take the time to remember The moral significance of a belief derives from the purpose to which it was put. And educate each other each other instead of shutting each other up because their truths cohabitate with ours. Silencing each other doesn't stop opinions; they keep them from being challenged. And that's all I have. I wrote it short, but it's like it kills me because like Whoopi Goldberg had this weird, unstructured, like shitty little thought she had coming out on The View, and everyone didn't really challenge her on the show when they should have. It should have been a conversation that they actually had on the show.
Yeah,
they just didn't really say anything.
It was
And
like
then
it was this clunky way of saying that, like, hey, racists and bigots, hate. Or it's easier to hate black people than it is to hate Jews.
well, you figure someone who's coming from a position where she only really knows race from her own personal perspective as a black woman, it is skin deep. Here in America, racism is skin deep. Like we have white supremacists and crazy motherfuckers in our country that like, oh, fuck the Jews, and they're fucking batshit crazy. And one of my favorite pastimes is watching videos of Nazis getting punched. But
no, and it's a great look into the idea that we can only experience lives from our own skin. You can only experience the world from our own skin.
right,
Like,
and then
it's that whole, you're white, so you're privileged, and I go, I understand that. I really do. And you've expressed the same sentiment, Corey.
Yeah.
Like we get that the fact that we are white, non-Jewish people in America makes us privileged. I understand that. You understand.
There's absolutely a privilege that we get. Like now in saying that, everything that doesn't take away anything from everything I've worked for.
No,
I grew up poor as shit. I had to work hard for everything I have, but my skin color was not a speed bump or a barrier to get to what I had.
correct.
To what it could possibly be for somebody else.
And we can't experience the world in any other way. Even being white, cisgendered, heterosexual men. It's this idea that we have to make enemies out of these people just for being what they were born as. Like that's still I don't want to use racism as the term, but there's still some weird idea that even if you're born the way we are as white men, that there's still some weird what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to use racism as a term, but there's some weird hypocrisy in that way that, like, you should just realize what you are and what you have is better, that you're better off, and fix the world. And it's like, well, I can't just because I'm white. I can't fix that. That's a really clunky way to say that, but
okay, Whoopi.
she was clunky too, but
But
I
like,
hope you understand what I'm saying. Like, it's not. It's just the fact that I'm a cisgendered white male heterosexual doesn't make me responsible for everything. I'm just one person.
yeah, no, and it's actually like, and she even elaborated more on the Stephen Colbert show when she said that she's like, if I'm standing next to a white Jewish person and the KKK is coming down the street, she goes, I'm gonna run. The white Jewish person can stand there because they're not going to immediately just assume who they are based on their skin color. And she went on to talk about how the Jewish people in Germany, they had to actually wear yellow stars to like show who they are. But it's a position of, I don't want to say ignorance, but lack of knowledge, because if you ask any Jewish person who they are, like what their race is, they're not going to say, Israeli. They're not going to say white. They're going to say Jewish.
Mhm.
And Hitler himself actually said that Jewish people are of the inferior race. So it's just a lack of education for her. So what the show should have done is bring on an educated person in this field to explain this to not only her, but their big ass audience and gain perspective. Because just shutting this down and shutting this whole argument up isn't doing shit. If that makes sense.
No, it does. And, you know, it's just interesting that she got suspended.
Right. And so, yeah, it's racism, like, or not racism, but race is more than skin. It has, it has a little bit to do with culture and ethnicity and things like that. Like, we have white people in Asia, in
If you wanna
Russia.
throw it under a
Russia's a
blanket,
part
you
of
could
Asia.
you could use the word prejudice to throw it
Yeah,
under
it's funny because you know what she kind of did? It's something that actually like white people are accused of, and it's looking through the lens at another race through a monolithic scope. They're all white. They're all just white. When you can say the same thing about black people, they're all just black. When we have black people from islands, we have black people from Africa, we have black people from different countries in Africa, and it's just painting a group of people in a monolithic scope just shows a lack of maybe culture, education on the actual topic that we're discussing.
Now we have to get into the capitalistic issue here when it comes to Joe Rogan versus books. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it, but you understand where I'm getting at here, right?
Oh, you mean how like Neil Young tried to go against a $100 million contract where you just which in all reality, like, please let Spotify cancel Joe Rogan. He'll take that 100 million and create his own platform, and he'll be like Jimmy Dore Breaking Points, and then he'll have no speed bumps whatsoever. Or, I mean, no bumpers.
It's kind of
in mind.
It's kind of this idea that each side claims capitalism, much like each side claims the Constitution when it's convenient for them. Like canceling Joe Rogan on Spotify, it's just the free market, Corey. It's just a free market
enterprise
doing what it's supposed to do.
And is sending Whoopi home to reflect also the free market.
I
don't think she should have been canceled. Agreed. Objectively,
she wasn't canceled. She was suspended, Corey.
Right. But like for the last 2 weeks, we've been talking about censorship and canceling people and things like that and the attempts that are happening against Joe Rogan. If we're going to be consistent and objectively unbiased, then the same thing that's happening to Whoopi Goldberg is what they've been trying to do to Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah, like so like Spotify should have suspended him for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I don't understand what they're trying to do.
You know that was just the network's way of just kowtowing to the illiberal limousine liberal left, right? Like that's all that was. That didn't mean anything. They were always going to bring her back if she chooses to come back.
There's word, I guess
I'd probably quit.
Unnamed sources from other people in the View saying that they're all pissed off about what happened.
But there's this weird defense of, trying to get Joe Rogan off Spotify that is centered in quote unquote capitalism. Oh, this is just capitalism. And it's, demanding a better product out of Spotify. That's what you do. You just demand a better product. And here's what I will say. I texted this to you the other day, Corey. If I don't like Burger King, if I go to Burger King and I have a Whopper and I don't like it, and I choose not to go back to Burger King, and I say, I can even go to Twitter and say, had this Whopper, fucking sucked.
I fucking hate Whoppers. What is this shit?
Nobody should go back to Burger King. That's not censorship.
Oh, now I really want a Whopper.
But if I go to the federal government or if I go to CNN, or if I go to anybody that has pull, and I say, we need to cancel Burger King because I hated this Whopper. We need to make sure that all Burger Kings are closed down because this Whopper sucked. We need to make and by the way, if you like Whoppers and you like Burger King,
You're a piece of shit.
You are a horrible person and you need to die. That is what we're going through with Joe Rogan.
Yeah. It's if you even listen to Joe Rogan, you're killing people.
Meanwhile, Whoppers actually are killing people.
Right. You're right. They are. I mean, it's a slow, agonizing pain that just tastes so goddamn good. It's like heroin. Heroin's great. It kills you.
It's not.
No, I'm not advocating heroin on this show. I am not advocating heroin. I will say that again. I am not advocating heroin.
Joe Rogan would.
He would. That misinformed piece of shit.
House bill, Corey, for Ukraine. We got to get into that. So a House bill trying to fast track $500 million in defense aid to Ukraine. That is fucking not needed. After just 2 weeks ago, the State Department okayed Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia to quote unquote transfer weapons to Ukraine. Let's see if Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and others are able to rearrange a deal to resupply those nations.
Yeah, and this would be the third largest, this would make Ukraine the third largest recipient of funding from the State Department, only surpassed by Israel and Egypt. And it's over this old-timey bullshit Cold War that has that we shouldn't even be a part of anymore, because we've talked about this on the show before, that it's about just trivial, just posturing, chest beating between two people who are in charge of nuclear buttons and
the fun word is saber rattling, Corey.
Saber rattling. Yeah, they're both just saber rattling. But $500 million co-sponsors. So last week, House Foreign, I'm on the intercept.com right now. The title of the article is Democrats are rushing through a massive Ukraine defense bill. And so last week, Foreign Affairs Committee Chair Gregory Meeks, a Democrat from New York, introduced the legislation which has 13 co-sponsors as a companion measure to the Senate's Defending Ukraine Sovereignty Act proposed earlier this month. The Senate bill, introduced by Foreign Relations Committee Chair Bob Menendez, boasts 41 Democratic co-sponsors, including Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Whip Dick Durbin. And they're all trying to throw together this bill that, let me see if I can find the name of the bill. The name of the bill is...
We could just make it up.
Yeah, it's something about just defending Ukraine.
Money to Ukraine for no reason, Bill.
Yeah, and now the Republicans, who are fiscally conservative, have offered their own measure to where it's only $450 million. Now, it fucking kills me because whenever it's not about war, it's always, where are we going to get the money from? How are we going to pay for this? But we're about to spend $500 million to a country that isn't NATO in a continent that's thousands of miles away. For what?
Because Putin is a bad man, Corey. He's a bad man.
Yeah, he's terrible for trying to defend his own sovereign country.
His crime, by the way, that requires aid to go to a non-ally. Ukraine is not an ally of the United States. They're not an enemy, but they're also not an ally. His crime, Putin's crime, putting troops on his own border.
Yeah.
Positioning troops in his own country. And here's what's super fucking interesting, Corey. Tucker Carlson. You already know where I'm going with this. Tucker Carlson who I think is atrocious, has had very few good takes. Tucker Carlson asks this question, which is essentially, why can't a country move troops around their own country and even put it close to their own borders? Imagine if China essentially militarily controlled Mexico. What would we be doing?
Yes, yeah, we would be doing the same shit. Oh, and the
I
bill is called.
I
The
cannot
bill is called.
believe that I just offended
defending.
Tucker Carlson, but I did.
Yep.
Because Tucker got it right.
The bill is called Defending Ukraine Sovereignty Act of 2022. What sovereignty? The sovereignty that we put in place in 2014 when we toppled the government and put in fucking Nazis.
Neo-Nazis. Neo-Nazis.
Neo-Nazis. We're defending Nazis in Ukraine right now and going to give them $500 million to fight the Russians in a country that's not our ally.
$500 million. Meanwhile, mandating healthcare during a pandemic, though, you know, who's going to pay for that? We don't know.
$500 million. Meanwhile, we still got people in Flint having to go to churches to get bottled water. $500 million. Meanwhile, we have 58,000 miles of bridge deficient in our country. $500 million. Meanwhile, we have thousands and thousands of Americans in our country under crippling debt because teachers, the government, parents, news, and colleges all told them to go ahead. You're 17. Take on this $100,000 loan to pay for schooling that's going to get you an $18 an hour job.
Also,
$500 million.
President Zelensky.
Meanwhile, we can't afford to just make sure everyone has just basic health care. $500 million. Meanwhile, while we still have people in rural communities who don't have basic internet and they have to drive to McDonald's to get Wi-Fi in a fucking pandemic just so their kids can get school.
But we have to send this
I could keep going. I could go on for another 15 minutes on this bullshit.
I don't need you to. President of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, meanwhile, saying,
"Stop,
cool out, dude. You're not making this thing any better." And it's so easy for me. It's so easy to figure out what the hell is going on here.
I sounded like a leftist there, didn't I?
You did. If you see at the bottom, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon salivate while poor Americans fight for health care. That's what this is about.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely what
they don't have the cash cow in Afghanistan anymore, so now they need to find a new one. So let's make a couple more quick bucks.
Take a quick look. If you find an article anywhere online that is somehow supporting the idea of sending aid to Ukraine at this juncture, just take a really close look at the article you're reading. Go to the bottom. Is there maybe just a tiny italicized print that says sponsored by Lockheed Martin?
Brought to you by General Dynamics.
Brought to you by General Dynamics. Brought to you by Raytheon. Like it's so easy to see what the hell is going on here. And it's I mean, and just to go back to our last topic, this is why people, this is why you are shown from a corporatized position, why people like Joe Rogan are evil, why people like Jimmy Dore are evil, like people like us to a smaller degree, because we have like 5 listeners, are evil, because we point these things out to you.
Yeah.
It's not.
Dan,
it's not even that hard to find.
Who said bipartisanship is dead? They're all working together to try to. I said, yeah. Who said bipartisanship is dead? They're all out there doing their damnedest to get that money in their pockets to perpetuate the military-industrial complex
and big pharma. And you know, we've talked about before. You know. The percentages that are never shown. If you're a young boy getting the COVID vaccine, you are far more likely to be harmed by myocarditis than you are by
it's about the
COVID. And people go, well, it's such a small number. It's such a small number that get myocarditis. Well, guess what? It's even a smaller number that die from COVID.
Sure. Yeah, no, the number is small, like as evidenced by the billions and billions of vaccines that have been pumped out. But that number is, as small as it is, it's still big enough to where the Netherlands, the UK, Israel, Newfoundland, Scandinavia, all the Baltic countries, and a lot of European countries aren't giving vaccines to kids
Yeah.
or people under 16. We're the only country because, Dan, it's all about the fucking money.
Yeah. And it's all about, the narrative is all about,
And it's not about saving
you-
lives, because if it
Yeah.
was, we would be giving these fucking vaccines to countries where, guess where Omicron came from? A poor, developing country in Africa that's been begging for this fucking vaccine
it's not
that
even
we
about,
aren't sending to them, to the point where Cuba's fucking doing it. A communist country
that we
is
hate.
sending their vaccines to the South African country because they're not speeding up their little researches enough to reverse engineer our vaccines,
And
that
it's
they have
not
to
even,
rely on communism to save them.
it's not even about saving lives here.
No,
either.
it's about the money, dude.
It's like, we already know, if I get vaccinated, Corey, doesn't help you. Guess
Right.
what helps? Guess what helps? Helps me. It's not to say that these vaccines don't work. And that's what you always get accused of saying. Oh,
Yeah.
you're just saying that vaccines don't work. No. But we have to understand what vaccines working
It's
actually
a
means.
leaky
If
vaccine.
I get vaccinated, it helps me. And if I choose to go get vaccinated, which, by the way, I did,
And good for you. I tell my parents every single day to fucking get vaccinated.
it helps me. And your parents getting vaccinated helps them. Doesn't help anybody else. We all know this virus can be spread when you.
But where was the misinformation saying that it didn't do that? From
On
CNN and Fox
on
News and
CNN.
MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, Joe Biden, all of them are saying, if you get vaccinated, you can be in close quarters without a mask on or anything.
Corey, I have to make a correction.
Uh-oh.
Last week.
Sloppy seconds?
No, yeah, last week.
You got some sloppy seconds from me, Dan?
Yeah, something that CNN doesn't do, or when we get things wrong, we actually, admit it, and because it's fucking okay. Like, sometimes you get things wrong. Last week we talked about Freedom Convoy 2022 in Canada, and I fell for the headlines saying that it was 50,000
You
truckers.
piece of shit.
I'm a piece of shit, Corey. It wasn't. It was more like it was a big number. It wasn't quite necessarily 50,000 truckers, but more people are.
49,999. No, I'm just kidding.
You got it wrong. It wasn't quite that many, but it was a nice amount of truckers, to the point where it's still hitting the mainstream media.
It was
barely.
enough to where Trudeau conveniently said, I gotta go hide. I have COVID.
Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, currently in hiding. By the way, he says it's because he has COVID, which is super interesting, because he's double vaxxed and boosted, while telling Canadian citizens that you have to get vaccinated to save other people.
Right. And it's funny because, like, I've never actually, hated Trudeau. The guy's smart as shit. He speaks a couple languages. I remember one time I was watching this thing, and it was during my Trump derangement syndrome days. But he was talking about quantum computing, and I was like, God damn it, this guy's smart as shit. And we have Trump who's using words like bigly and talking about the airport during the Revolutionary War. Why the fuck can't we have someone like this? But goddamn, now the guy, old blackface Trudeau is over there just hiding out.
The Orwellianism of what's going on in
Big
Canada
Brother's watching, bro.
should make Americans feel okay about what's still going on.
Oh, well, there's a really big trucker thing, I guess, planned here too. We're not going to let the fucking Canadians show us up, are we?
I'm actually going to get to that in 1 second. But first, I really do want to talk about what's going on in Canada, because, you have the Ottawa Police Department threatening to make arrests and prosecute any officer that is helping this movement. I'm gonna play that audio for you
am
right
aware
now.
of. There is no facilitation of food, water, fuel, logistics, or funding by any member of this police service or any other police service that I am aware of. Let me repeat. There is no supply of food, water, fuel, logistics, or anything else that relates to enabling this demonstration by any member of the Ottawa Police Service or any other police service that I am aware of. Should that information come to me, you can be clear, as Chief of Police in this service, I will conduct a full investigation. I will use the full extent of the Police Service Act and, if relevant, the Criminal Code to pursue charges against such a member who would do that.
That was the police chief of the city of Ottawa.
Wow. He's
Absolutely
taking,
incredible.
He's taking cues from the American police there. Remember when all the Black Lives Matter protests were happening? And like, I don't know exactly all the rules and stipulations, so I'm not going to pretend that I have this like notepad in front of me with everything written down. But like when there's protests and stuff happening in America, the press is supposed to be unharmed. And people who actually are there to be like medics and stuff are supposed to be unharmed, like in a war zone.
Meanwhile,
When the protests were happening here and people were off to the side with tables set up with handing out water and stuff like that, police were showing up. And this is in America. Police were showing up and cutting the water bottles and doing things like that to people who were supporting the protesters in certain cities and stuff like that.
using the Constitution and your
Mhm.
right to protest.
Yeah, abusing it. Now, we have a constitution. In Canada, I don't think they do. I don't think they have an actual document. Like, I think they're just a free
They don't have
democracy.
they don't have literal freedom of speech. Yeah, they don't
Yeah,
have
so that's the biggest thing, and I think, and I'd actually like to get into this real quick for a second. That's the biggest difference between democracy and a constitutional republic. In a democracy, in a lot of these countries, and people try to pin America as a democracy when we're actually not. If you want to get into the real stickiness of it, we're a constitutional republic. In a democracy, if you own land and you're by yourself, or let's make it more trivial, if you own a bike and then everyone votes that they don't want you to have that bike anymore, they can take it from you. In a constitutional republic, the Constitution protects you because of a Bill of Rights that you can refer to the Constitution, that even if a 99% of the people in the country think you shouldn't have that bike, if that bike is protected by the Constitution, you get to keep that bike.
And I think the argument for what's wrong with America is the 99% that you just spoke of doesn't have a voice, and the
Right.
1% of the corporatists are
Yeah.
the issue. And
Don't get me wrong.
That's a legitimate argument.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's our Constitution is bastardized because people just don't fucking understand and know what exactly we're based on. And I'm 100% way more in favor of a constitutional republic than a democracy. There's,
Meanwhile, in Canada, you have people that are just trucking in food, trucking in supplies, trucking in water.
You're talking to people who know nothing but logistics.
for all of Canada. I'm gonna can I pull this up? I'm gonna try. Yeah,
That what is it? That
Actually,
one guy
I
who was
should
talking.
have.
He's like, "Yeah, I have 3 weeks of food in my truck."
dude. Like all they know is logistics. All they know is like sleeping in a small space. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. This video is.
I've been surviving on microwave bean burritos and living in this small quarter space.
This video is absolutely fantastic. This is from people that are actual that know what it's like to be in an actual authoritarian communist nation.
It comes from television. The best woman from Vancouver. Thank you. Show me what's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is from Polish. From Polish store. Yes. From Toronto. Oh, look what they're bringing in. They're eating better than us.
Look at all those
Hatchkis.
donuts.
Wow.
Those are
I
punchkis.
wish I was a trucker, man. Bread. Food. That looks like a barbecue right there. Looks like they're going to be eating really well for a really, really long time. and we bless them. That is for sure.
These anti-communists are
Look at
like,
this.
hell
Look
yeah,
at
we got your
all
back.
of the provisions. Oh my goodness. And guess what? Everybody is going to want to keep sharing for months and months.
Everyone's gonna keep sharing. She's propagating socialism. That
Liz is really eyeing up those donuts. And she's like, hi, how are you?
Who are you?
Yes, I'm Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson, and we're just presenting what's going on behind the scenes. Who are you?
I'm Bernadette, and we came here with Anna from Toronto. We brought 1,550 Polish sausages for our truckers. We brought some bread and buns and Polish donuts. And you know what? We know that they drive, so we didn't bring alcohol. But should they request some Polish vodka, we're very happy to bring that. So.
Nice.
Okay, that is wonderful. Why did you do this?
Because we stand behind them. We come from communist country, and we came here because we didn't want to have oppression. We wanted to live in a free country, and for the last 2 years, we're living like prisoners. We are being told to stay at home. We're told not to go to the restaurant, not to go to the church. I mean, this is unbelievable. During communism times, we were able and free to go to the church. And there were times over here where we couldn't. So I really can't take it anymore. So I'm going to be coming here with the food weekly, bi-weekly, every 2 or 3 days until it ends.
So this is it, everyone. All of these desperate housewives linking arms.
Not housewives, businesswomen.
She's like, don't. She sounds like a feminist.
How are you to tell these people that they're wrong?
Yeah, I thought they were all Nazis out there, Dan. I thought they're all
They are.
extremists.
They're fascists and they're horrible human beings that just they're killing people, Corey. They want people to die.
Yeah, they're all probably Joe Rogan followers.
And it's that interesting argument of that you get from people that are so risk averse that it's like you could go outside and maybe get COVID, and that's what people have taken advantage. That's what the mainstream media has taken. That's what big pharma has taken advantage of. It's this idea that we are now a people that's stuck inside, and we're okay with that. We're risk averse. What kind of life is it if you literally sit inside your house all day? What are you going to do? Do you want to go out and maybe get COVID and probably recover? Or do you just want to freak the fuck out and never get COVID and stay inside in some sort of Orwellian nature like these ladies?
We're in a weird spot now where I feel like most of the people that are actually like, just like, come on, bro, just get the vaccine, bro. Everything will be cool, bro. I think it's out of convenience. People are just fed up, because even those people are fed up with being stuck at home. They just don't have the means and the economic advantage to take a stand, but they also want to get back to normal too. And no one's talking about that really. How many people do you think just want people to get vaccinated just so they can go back to going to the bars and partying and actually having a livelihood again and a life again, to where they're in a bar and everyone's on the dance floor close and dancing and no one has masks on, and they brush against someone and that person's sweat gets all over their arm and they're kind of like, ew, but they're drunk so they don't really care. Like, when's the last time that's happened to people?
Well, in most cases, you can do that.
It depends on the state.
It depends on the state. It depends on the jurisdiction.
Here in Michigan, we're pretty purple, and it's funny because if you listen to Whitmer's State of the State address recently, it's the optics of it. It's really, really funny. So Whitmer is a fucking, going off on a little tangent here. Whitmer's a fucking tactician when it comes to politics. You don't have to agree.
Politician.
You don't have to agree with everything she says, but this girl is fucking smart just fucking smart when it comes to this shit. A year ago, when she was trying to do the authoritarian thing before she got fucked by the courts with her defense authorization and shit and stuff, remember when she got kneecapped by the courts? In the last State of Address, she was like, I'm here, I'm doing this. And she's wearing this like black leather blazer and she's up there talking, saying how she's going to take control. Well, a year later,
Looking kind of hot, but a little greasy.
yeah,
how I
a year
feel about
later,
her.
she was wearing a purple blazer. And guess what some of her biggest talking points were? Lowering taxes and keeping kids in schools. Because guess what? She saw fucking McAuliffe just lose in Virginia over fucking schools to a Republican. What's his name? McAuliffe lost. It was, I can't think of his name.
Did you lose it already?
I can't think of the guy's name. He was the Republican guy who won the just governor of Virginia. And so she came out and made it clear that the schools
Youngkin.
need to, Youngkin. She came out and made it real clear that the schools need to stay open. We're cutting taxes, and it was kind of like praising the bipartisanship in the country. And it's like, yeah, no, girl, you can't pretend to be this Democrat like you're like straight up like we're a blue state. You gotta go to both sides because Michigan's pretty purple. But she's smart. She knew that.
Yeah.
And she's probably going to win again in 2022. The Republicans, I feel like, gave up on Michigan. There ain't nobody, but there's this one girl, Tudor, who was down in Florida. Tell me, Dan, how the fuck does a Michigan person, oh man, I'm losing the word. Someone running for governor for Michigan.
Gubernatorial candidate?
Yeah, gubernatorial candidate. She was in Florida doing a campaign fundraiser with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Because fuck the Michigan constituents, right?
I thought she was a state rep.
No, Tudor, she's running for governor.
Oh, is she? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
I believe you. Either way, it doesn't matter. Why the fuck are you whether she's a state rep or a gubernatorial candidate? Why the hell is she down in Florida?
Because it's the trend that everything's going to federal, and and it really does piss me off that the way our Constitution was set up is we were sovereign states with a federal government that's an overseer. When you read the Federalist Papers, that's what they intended when they created the federal government.
Well, that's why you and I both get upset when we hear people like, gas prices are high. Thanks, Uncle Joe. Or the stock market is shitty. Fuck Donald Trump. It's like, it's just like, that's not how our government was designed. The president has nothing to do with the stock market. The president has nothing to do with gas prices. That's all people focus on is what the president is or is not doing, which, by the way, regardless of which party he and someday she is in, it's always the same. It's always
it is. And it pisses me off too, because like when you see people talk about stuff like that, it's I don't think people realize just how much of even though it's not all about one person at the presidency, but like how much power they actually do have. Kind of going off on a tangent here. Recently we were talking about meat prices, right? Like meat prices are skyrocketing and stuff like that. All Joe Biden did was come out and talk about trying to break up the trust for the meat industry. And meat prices dropped like 2.3% or something like that. And he could be doing more shit like that, but he doesn't. Because he doesn't give a fuck.
He needs a minute. He needs to take a bubble bath. He needs to take a bubble bath. He needs to take a Viagra. He needs to do things with his Dr. Jill wife, and then get back to really, really running the country. That's
right.
What
No, I don't know if you have anything else. I think we're running out of gas here.
How woke is too woke?
Oh shit, yeah. Okay, before we do that, I wanted to share this. Jake Armitage, I think he's a new viewer, new listener. I want to give him a shout out. He said this earlier, and I was like, yeah, no, he's absolutely right. He just said these political cults need to chill, and he's basically summing up the whole show.
It basically sounds like something Joe Rogan would say.
Right? So,
before we go, how woke is too woke, Corey? Would you like me to set this up for you?
Yeah, go ahead and set that up for me.
How woke is too woke? LGBTQI plus Muslim Aussie rules football player sits out a game over quote unquote pride jerseys. And the reason we brought this up for How Woke is Too Woke is because I'm not sure who wins the Victim Olympics here. Who
Yeah,
wins the Victim Olympics? Is it the Muslim or is it the trans community?
I don't know. There's that hierarchy of victims. And it seems like right now that the trans community is obviously on top.
Do you
What
have
does
it
it
in
go?
front of you?
Does it the article?
Yeah, what's the young woman's name? She's a predominant player in Australian rules football on the
Haneen
women's side.
Zrika.
Yeah, she's apparently one of the best players in the league. I don't know if you know this, Corey, but Australia rules football used to be on like ESPN2 at like 2:00 in the morning when I was like 8 years old, and I would watch this. Are you familiar with this game?
Not at all. It's
So
rugby,
Australia,
right?
it's essentially rugby. There's a couple of different rules. It's got instead of in rugby, you can drop kick the ball through the uprights, but there's only one set of uprights. But for some reason in Australia rules football, there's like 3, and you can kick. There's a couple of different rules, but it's basically rugby. Yes.
Okay.
I didn't explain anything just now. Nope.
I don't even know how fucking rugby is played. I've watched the game and it's fucking insane. It's really funny actually because one of the girls in my house right now, one of my wife's friends, actually played rugby in college. And it just looks like a brutal fucking great sport, and I wish that we saw more of it on TV. But
it is. You can either drop kick the ball through for 1 point, or you can get it.
There's
what American
scrubs. They build pyramids
zone.
on the field and they tackle each other and they just beat the shit out of each other. And there's no pads. There's no safety regulations. Unlike
there's no forward passing.
Yeah, it's all laterals.
Yeah, and you have to get the ball into what American football fans would call the end zone for a try.
They gotta make a goal.
How much is a try worth, Corey?
Make
Do
a
you know
basket.
that? Do you know the answer to that question? How much is a
3
try
points?
worth? It's worth 5.
Okay. Well, shit.
And then you
that was
then
2
you get
points off.
Then you get what would be the rugby equivalent of an extra point afterwards, where you kick it, but you have to kick it at the angle from which you scored the try. So if you score it off in the corner, you have to kick the goal from that angle, like from the sideline. But if you score more towards the middle of the field, now you get to kick the goal from more of a straight on position. So it's very strategic, and that kick is worth 2 extra points.
So you get 3 points on the extra points worth 2.
You get 5 for the try.
Oh, and then the extra point.
And
is
you get 2
extra points.
Kick. Yes. Nobody
Wow.
cares.
We should. Rugby sounds like a badass sport.
Anyway, Australia rules football. What do you do? What do you do? You got a Muslim player who doesn't want to wear a pride jersey. What do you do?
You know, they probably don't. They probably think she's like, I don't want to say Americanized, but Australianized because she's not wearing a hijab.
Oh, that is a good point. That is a good point. She does not wear a hijab.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess based on what we've seen with Dave Chappelle and all the other narratives, I think that the LGBT community surpasses everything right now. Not Muslims. Where Muslims at one point were, you know, the people that were like ostracized and really, really like oppressed and stuff in our country because of 9/11 and things like, even though this is in Australia, but like Muslims were definitely a group of people that was oppressed. Like, not, I don't want to say oppressed, but definitely singled out and like really shit on.
So she loses.
She loses. Not according to
loses
me or you. She loses according to the hierarchy of who's the most.
She loses the Victim Olympics.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's tough to lose the Victim Olympics. You and I, as being cisgender white males, will never win the Victim Olympics ever.
That's okay. I got my white privilege.
I'm good with it. Yeah, I don't need to lose the Victim Olympics.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Or win the
like,
Victim
who gives a fuck? If she doesn't want to wear the fucking jersey, don't let her wear the fucking jersey. It's religion. It's her personal religion. We talk about religious freedom and religious rights all the goddamn time. How the hell could this girl have to sit out because her personal religious beliefs. Like, what does this prove? What does this do? Does this stop oppression of LGBTQ people in countries like China or like Belarus, where like they're killed, or in Afghanistan where they're thrown off buildings? This
Or
doesn't do
Uyghurs
shit for
in China,
that.
by the way, Corey. Don't forget about the
Yeah.
Uyghurs.
Oh, the Muslims.
Yeah. Victim
she'd be
Olympics
getting
are
killed
tough.
in China.
We should make that a weekly segment, the Victim Olympics, where Corey and I
basically, yeah.
always lose.
We
We should do that throughout the Olympics. The Olympics is going on for the next 2 weeks, Corey. We should do Victim Olympics every week.
And big shocker, we lose. Who would we actually win? Who would we actually beat?
We would beat a neo-Nazi.
Nazis?
That's
Yeah, we
about
beat
it.
The Nazis, but they're white. God damn those bastards! Really ruining it for the rest of us.
Let's see. Like, wait, Corey, I grew up Catholic, so that's got to give me points over Protestant.
Fuck no, it doesn't.
I think it does.
No, fucking Catholics are the ones that are known for raping little kids. Yeah, you're done for, bud.
I guess that's true, but we've only had one Catholic president.
No, we have two.
We had Kennedy, and who was the other one?
Biden.
Oh, Biden's a Catholic? I didn't even know. Didn't care.
Yeah, Biden's Catholic. Because people were saying he's not a real Catholic because he's pro-choice. You don't remember all that shit?
Yeah, I'm not really a Catholic anymore anyway, but I was raised Catholic. I got shit on by like other white people up the hierarchy.
If I ever get backed into a corner about shit like that, I just pull out the card that my family fought for the North in the Civil War. And I'm like, thank God my family has always been on the right side of history. And that's what that's what I try to do for the sake of my kids.
Nazis and Kid Rock are like the only people we win over in the victim hierarchy.
Kid Rock he has black kids. He beats you, man. He has more black people in his family than you do.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah, you're fucked, dude.
Even Kid Rock beats me.
Yeah.
And you have black siblings. I'm done for.
Yeah, you fucking white supremacist racist.
I might as well kill myself.
I can't believe I'm doing a podcast with this asshole, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, this white cisgendered. Look at him. He's blonde. He's got his hair slicked back like an asshole. I can't
blonde hair, blue eyes. You're done for, bud.
I don't have blue eyes. They're green.
Yeah, that's what a Nazi would
That's
say.
enough. Put down the mic.
God.
Is that it?
God, I hope so. Somebody's got to write this listing ship.
Thanks for listening, guys. It's always fun. We just try to call the balls and strikes on left and right. If you enjoy what you hear, make sure to like, follow, and listen, and subscribe, and give us a review. It helps us get our it shakes up the algorithms so we can reach out to more people that probably like just a lighthearted conversation that's unbiased. You can find us on LibServative on Instagram and Twitter. You can find us at LibServative on Facebook. You can reach out to us directly at libservative@gmail.com, or no, libservativepod@gmail.com. You can find our blogs where you can read all of our monologues at libservativepod.wordpress.com. We go live every Friday right now. Like, follow, and share. Come hang out, join the conversation. We constantly post new things where we try to engage with the audience. And if you like what you hear, just tell a friend. We don't expect you to share things and do all sorts of stuff like that. I'm sure you have a friend you talk to politics with. Tell them where you heard what you heard on the show. And until next week, he's been Dan Griffin.
He's been Corey Walsh. This has been one of the worst episodes we've ever done, but we love you anyway. No, they've all been bad.
I'm having a great time.
Yeah, me too. This has been LibServative. You heard Corey Walsh. Find us in all those places. And until next time, we are out of here.